Hello, I hope you have enjoyed this week or this module for the last couple of weeks. And in this module, you have been learning about the theory of consumer choice. And basically, the theory was uh, more is better than less. Glad that you're using your college education to learn something really good like that. More is better than less, right? But we introduced this concept of utils. Uh, Utils are a utility function, and we measure happiness using this imaginary utils. Okay, it's imaginary utility. Unfortunately, people aren't as good as dogs. Okay, when a dog is really, really happy, you know the level of happiness by the wagging of the tail. The faster the tail wags, you can measure how happy the dog is, right? And if the dog is just staring at you and the tail is, down, it's not a terribly happy dog, right? And you can measure that. Okay. With people, it's a little bit different, right? It's kind of hard to measure how happy people are, especially from the outside. And if you ask them, how are you doing today? They'll lie, right? They'll say, we're very happy and so on and so forth. Well, the bottom line is economists never are able to figure out what the actual happiness is. So what we created is this imaginary measurement called utils. We don't know how to really measure it, but we do know a couple different things. We know how people make trade-offs, and we know that people like more stuff. More is better than less, right? So the more stuff people have, the happier they are, right? So when I draw, you know, on one axis the amount of stuff one, meat, and the next one, drinks, beer, right? The more beer, the better. The more meat, the better, right? So if I can take 2 points, one with a little bit of meat and a little bit of beer, and one with a lot of beef and a lot of beer, you know you're going to be happier. You as an individual are going to be happier at the higher point, right? Okay. The other thing that we can, as economists, ask is, okay, between these two bundles, which would you rather have? And people can answer that question relatively easier. I'd rather this amount of meat with this amount of beers and smaller amount and but where are all of the indifference points where I say, okay, it's a tie, right? And that's what this chapter looks at. It looks at these indifference curves. And these indifference curves never cross, and they always are the further to the northeast you go, the further higher and or to the right you go, the happier you're going to be because you're on a utility function that's higher than that. Right? Okay. And that's essentially what this chapter was about. Right? And what this chapter also brought up was, okay, we can't have as much happiness as we want. Okay? We are constrained with a budget. How much beef could we buy if we just bought beef? How much beer could we buy if we just bought beer? Right? And what are the different combinations? Maybe a little less beer, a little more beef. That is the line. It's the budget line. Anything under the budget line is affordable. We can do that. Where are we going to do? What are we going to choose to buy? We're going to choose to buy those bundles. Okay? Those bundles of products which bring us on the highest level of happiness. Because as people, we like to be happy, and as economists, we believe people know what they're doing. Okay? So that's kind of what we did in this chapter. The other thing that we did in this chapter was I presented this concept of an Edgeworth box. Now, I hope you all watched and tried to understand what's going on, but the Edgeworth box is a microeconomics foundation of what would happen and what do we expect in a macro economy. What happens when we have two individuals and only a certain amount of both goods? Well, what we did was we took the happiness indifference curves from person 1, took the happiness and difference curves from 2, flipped this one over, and then superimposed them. So from looking at one corner, you're looking at the world from person 2's perspective. Looking at it from person 1's perspective, you can see the same thing. By superimposing them, okay, economists have come up with the concept of what we expect equilibrium's possibilities to be. Right? Now, the possibilities are different depending on what our starting spot was. If someone starts this game with the vast majority of both the beer and the meat, well, it's not going to be, there'll still be some trading back and forth, but that person is going to always be at a happier point than the other one is. But at least we will trade to a point where the total amount of happiness is maximized given that starting spot. Right? Okay. Anyways, so that's what we did in the Edgeworth box. If you enjoyed watching and thinking about the Edgeworth box, maybe a career in economics is for you. Okay. If that box confused the crap out of you, forget about it. It's not going to be on the test this week. All right. It was a teaser of what intermediate microeconomics classes would teach you. Right. So if this is something that you say, hey, that really was quite interesting, then maybe a grad school degree in economics or taking an intermediate course. We don't offer one here in the College of Business, but if you want to come talk to me, I'd be more than happy to do an independent study if you really wanted it. Right? Okay. Anyways, that's it for this week. Spring break starts tomorrow. I am going to put up the exam, but you're going to have until you get back from spring break to take it. So I'll probably make it so that it expires like on Tuesday when you get back. All right. So enjoy your spring break, and we look forward to talking with you next week, or after next week and a half from now. Bye-bye.